Hello, this is Robert Rickover at Body Learning, and my guest today is Helene Goldberg, who studied piano pretty intensively as a child. For various reasons, wasn't able to continue that. Years went by. She had a family. She formed her own business, selling fabrics and sewing notions and tools online. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I believe she thought decided to go back to playing piano, and after a few years, there came a point when basically she wasn't able to play because of pain, and that took her to the Alexander technique. And we're going to just talk today a little about her experiences with the technique. Helene, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Robert. It's great to be here.
It's great talking to you. We've been in correspondence by email on and off for the last little while. Um, could you begin by giving our listeners your very short description or definition of the Alexander technique?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, from what I understand and my experience of it, is that uh, the body is designed in a particular way to work with your skeleton and your muscles, and everything is designed in a particular way. However, what happens over time is that we start using our bodies incorrectly and we form habits where we're either using the wrong muscles to do things, or we're using the right muscles but using them more than we need to. And both of those scenarios lead to pain and injury. And the Alexander technique allows me to, or allows one, to unlearn those bad habits and to uh, learn how to use our body correctly so that we can perform whatever tasks we're doing without pain and without injury.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Hmm.
And so I would imagine it's quite possible you never heard of the Alexander technique until fairly recently, right?
That's correct.
And it occurred because of basically just not being able to play due to pain. Is that right?
Yeah, what happened is that it's this gorgeous story that I'm sure we don't have time for here, but I found the teacher that I had when I was a child was a concert pianist, and his son, I'm taking lessons from him now,
Hmm.
and uh, having the time of my life and playing, and I had to stop because I was in so much pain with my right arm that I just couldn't play anymore. I went to see a rheumatologist, and he said, "Oh, no problem. I'll just give you a cortisone shot in the wrist."
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, "Ugh, I don't know
Yeah.
about that."
Right.
So I thought, well, let me look and see if there are other options. And I did a search on the internet, and I think I typed in something like pain in arm while playing the piano, something as simple as that. And I think one of the first responses was a website by someone who had all sorts of information about how to play without pain, and on the sidebar had a link to Alexander, amongst other things. But I clicked on that link, and as I read about it, I thought, oh my gosh, I think I found the answer. So that's how I came to it, and found that there's a school here in Melbourne where I live,
Hmm.
and got in touch with a teacher who happens to live a suburb away from me, a town away from me, and it's a very short distance. And I've started learning from her how to use my body correctly when I play.
Well, we should give this teacher a little name
Oh,
recognition.
absolutely, absolutely. It's Jenny Thurtle. Now, Jenny is wonderful. She's actually the associate director, or assistant director of the school here in Melbourne. I think it's called the School for FM Alexander
Right,
Study.
and that's a school for training teachers of the
Oh,
Alexander
yeah,
technique.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
correct.
you having read about the technique,
Mm.
you were fortunate to have be in a city where there were several teachers, and you found a good one right near you.
Yeah, absolutely. Very,
That's
very fortunate.
so. When you first came, when you came for your first lesson or two, what was your take on what was going on?
The very first lesson, I knew that I'd found the thing that was going to make the difference. Now, in that very first lesson, um, one of the first things that Jenny did with me is show me how I was standing and sitting down, just that simple process from standing to sitting and back up again,
Mm-hmm.
and how I was using uh, my legs and my body, my torso, and my, just kind of. And she asked me a question. She said, "Helene, what do you think holds your body up?" And I said, "I'm not quite sure. My spine, I suppose. I'm not sure." And she showed me, she's got this fantastic book, and she showed me pictures where I could see that there are these two little hooks, like right at the top of the skull, inside your head,
Mm-hmm.
um, and sorry, top of the spine. And there are two little jigamy bobbers,
Yep.
it's a very technical term,
Yeah.
that actually holds the whole um, skeletal system, I suppose.
Well,
Oh,
it holds your head. They
it holds your
support your
head,
head. Yep.
but
Mm-hmm.
but but everything else kind of hangs from there, and it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize. I had no idea. So I started to kind of learn about my body, um, like things that I'd never considered before, and just opened my eyes to how how little I actually do know about how to use my body correctly.
Mm-hmm. So I think that what your experience of learning um, some basic anatomical details and some basic understanding of how you use joints in your body comes as a big shock to a lot of new students. I think most people have never thought about those questions before. I certainly never did before I had Alexander lessons. I didn't know anything about my the structure of my body, I guess. So that sounds like your experience too.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things that Jenny showed me is the extent to which I use my shoulders to do everything. And after that first and second lesson, I mean, I would be walking around my house going, "Oh my God, I'm raising." Kind of, how you kind of lift your shoulders up, you kind of
Mm-hmm.
hold your shoulders up, and so
Mm-hmm.
everything, your neck's kind of a little bit scrunched, but my shoulders are doing all the work. So I'd walk with my shoulders. I'd reach to open a door handle with my shoulders up. I would sit at a computer with my shoulders up. I would eat dinner with my shoulders up. I would, well, certainly playing the piano, my shoulders were up, and everything that I was doing, I noticed, my God, I'm using these shoulders where I really don't need to. And
Right.
that was like shocking to see that. And started to give me an insight into, well, no wonder I'm in so much pain in my arms. So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And did there come a time when she worked with you while you were playing piano?
Yes, yes, absolutely. It took a while. I had to be willing to be patient and not play for a little bit. I had to
Mm-hmm.
actually stop playing
Mm-hmm.
because Jenny explained that if I was to keep playing, I would keep reinforcing those bad habits that I was using.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to stop for a couple of reasons. One is, first of all, for the pain, because it
Mm-hmm.
was just, I couldn't. But to give myself a chance to learn some new ways of using my arms and my whole body, in fact. So yeah, and then so because it was quite a few lessons down the track before she actually said to me, "Okay, why don't you bring in your music next week and we'll sit at the piano."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how did that go? Your first experience with her actually helping you as you played the piano?
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much playing yet as here was the really interesting thing. Before she actually allowed me to play, she said, "Okay, now just lift your arms to the piano, to the keyboard. But lift your hands to the keyboard."
Right.
And I did in my normal fashion, as I would.
Yeah.
And she said, "Okay, now, what is it that actually took your hands to the keyboard?" I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, I think I couldn't really answer the question because I really didn't think about that ever. Um, and what she had me do was to she taught me in that first lesson to allow my, like, just to picture that my fingertips, so to rest my hands on my knees,
Hmm.
to organize my body, to let my head be free so that my spine could lengthen and my shoulders could soften and broaden. And so once I was sitting right and my hands were resting, my shoulders were hanging nice and soft,
Hmm.
and my hands were just resting on my knees. And she said, okay, now just picture with one hand, with your left hand, just imagine that you're just taking your fingertips to the keyboard, because she said where the fingertips go, the rest of the arm follows. And it's
Right,
like, well,
right,
of course, but it was like, who had ever thought of that before?
right,
So,
right.
and effortlessly. So I lifted my hand, my fingertips, I just focused on my fingertips, lifting them to the keys.
Hmm.
And of course, my arm followed. But it was effortless. And I realized that there was no, I didn't need to use my shoulders. I certainly didn't need to use my forearms or anything else, any muscle. It was just my arm just followed where my fingertips took it.
Right, right. And that using your directing your fingertips to the keyboard took you out of your old pattern, which
Yeah,
probably involved, I'm guessing from what you said, some hunching of your shoulders and
yeah, absolutely.
probably some neck tightening. Did
Yes.
did it did it come at did some point did you get a sense that say sitting in front of a piano and bringing your fingers to the keyboard was quite a different thing than maybe sitting at a table and bringing your fingers to the surface of the table, that there was something about the piano itself that influenced the way you moved your
Yes.
arms?
Yes. Yes.
Because
Yes.
I see that all the time with
Yes.
pianists,
Absolutely.
that there's a
Absolutely.
whole world of preconceived ideas and tensions and often
Yes.
a lot of emotional stuff around it, right? It's not
Yeah.
just a simple movement. It's like your whole history of playing the piano kind of comes into that, right?
You're so right.
Yeah.
This was a completely transformational experience, this
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
It transformed my view of the world and of my life and of myself and of myself as a musician.
Uh-huh.
What it brought up was because what I saw is that when I used to come to the piano, I'd sit on the piano stool and I'd come to the piano. Before I lifted my hands, there was this world of expectation, of anticipation, of excitement, of, oh my God, I'm here at the piano again. Oh my God, this is so important. It's so exciting, but it's very important and very serious and very, I can't just play. I can't just start playing. It's like this is a very serious affair.
Right.
And all my history of the stops and starts along the way of playing and not playing, and the teachers and that I used to be good and now I'm not so good, and all of that came into play. And
Right.
I would sit there and it was, oh, I'm sorry, I keep touching the mic. I'm sorry about that. Um, all of my history was right there with me as I went to lift my hands to the piano. So no wonder my shoulders were up, and this was very dramatic, you see, because
Right. Right.
here I am at the piano. And it was kind of, and what Jenny had me see is just to kind of, she said, okay, now just imagine that this is just a piece of wood. It's just wood and
Yeah.
some plastic and some,
Yep. Yep.
whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just, and I would kind of lift my hands up, use it by my fingertips, and then just plunk, 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 to take all the significance out of it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that what I was left with was creating a whole new relationship between myself, like me and the piano, and music. And so, and it was one based on, uh, well, it certainly didn't have all that history attached.
Right.
It was
Right.
just a new approach where there wasn't any of that significance. There was all the joy, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but none of the significance and the emotion that was attached to it that had me tense up before I actually touched the keys.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And over time, I'm assuming that you're now playing on your own and progressing with lessons. Is that correct?
Yes, and
And you don't have the pain that brought you to the technique in the first place, or less of it, or
yeah, here's the really exciting thing for me about Alexander technique is that I cannot tell you now, Robert, that I'm entirely pain free. I never experience a moment of pain. It's all over. I'm good to go. Every time I touch the piano, it's always, in the right. I do still, because this, look, it's been about 8 months maybe that I've been learning
Mm-hmm.
the Alexander technique. It's a lot of it is ingrained already, but
Mm-hmm.
there certainly are times where I still come. For example, I started with Mozart, okay,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very. I'm not saying that Mozart is easy, but it's less demanding on my hands and my arms. I've got small hands, so I could play Mozart and be able to apply the technique really easily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right before I stopped playing, when I was in that enormous pain, I was playing Brahms. Now, for
Mm-hmm.
a small-handed person, that was a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just had so much pain. Now, the thing that I know now to do when I play Brahms, I can catch myself reverting to my old habits and interrupt that. If at the end of the play or even during the play I end up with pain, I stop. I
Mm-hmm.
don't continue thinking it'll be okay. In the past I'd say, it's okay, it'll be all right. I'll just get to the end, it'll be okay. But I don't do that because I just love playing Brahms so much. But I stop and I don't allow myself to continue. And if I need to, I know that I can reorganize my body. And if sitting doesn't help, I get on the floor. I've learned how to well, treat is the wrong word, but I've learned how to take care of my body
Mm-hmm.
so that I can
Right.
return to a state of zero pain.
Right. Right. And I assume you do constructive rest at times like that.
Yeah,
And just for our listeners who may not know what that is, it's a very specific way of lying down. It usually involves your knees being elevated relative to your hips and some support under your head on a fairly firm surface. And that configuration, just by itself, helps decompress your body. Just
yeah,
even if you didn't know any Alexander technique, that would be beneficial. So you use you use that as kind of a break from playing when things when pain starts to creep in,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
some self-directing, I assume, as well. Or
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I'd like to just touch on another topic that you mentioned in passing, but I think our listeners would be interested. You made the statement that not only has this helped you with piano, but that it has kind of changed your life in all sorts of ways, right?
Oh, uh,
Could you? I know that's a
yeah.
huge topic,
No, no, no,
but
no. It's great. I can illustrate very
could
simply.
you
Yeah, yeah.
give an example or two of what you mean
Mm,
by that?
for sure. I also have bad knees, right? I did a 5K run that I only ran half of it and walked the rest, but shortly after that, I'd torn both of the meniscus, like in both my knees,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to go up steps. It was quite embarrassing to watch me, but I would go up steps one at a time, go down steps one at a time. I couldn't if we went walking about town. I would go like if we came to a hill, especially downhill, was
Mm-hmm.
really challenging for my knees and for my legs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what what has happened now through working with Jenny is that I can actually go upstairs and downstairs like a normal person, just upstairs, downstairs. And
Right.
what I do the whole time, I'm talking to myself. I'm going up, 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 going
Mm-hmm.
up, going up. Even if I'm going downstairs, I'm saying to myself, going
Right.
up, going up. And what
Right.
I mean by that is that my head be free. I check in and make sure that my head is free, and that my spine is lengthening. That I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of holding myself up, and my legs just behave normally, and that's made such a difference to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can walk around. I'm not worried about, oh gosh, we're going out for dinner. Well, am I going to have to encounter steps? Will they seat us upstairs in the restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
And things like that was such a challenge for me, and now they're not, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's wonderful.
So it has affected all sorts of areas of your life, not
Yeah.
just piano playing.
Absolutely.
Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to mention before we come to a close?
Um, well, just briefly that this is something that I can use to take care of myself. I think I just said that before, but it's like in the past I would have run to the chiropractor, to the physio, to the doctor, to the rheumatologist,
Hmm.
and now I can mostly take. I haven't been to see them in months, and I can mostly take care of myself, and it's just a phenomenal um, experience to be able to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
Well, maybe this would be a great place to bring our conversation to an end.
Mm.
My guest today has been Helene Goldberg, who lives in Melbourne, Australia. Is you could best be described now as a serious student of piano playing, right?
Yes. Yes.
And and I would say, from what you said, a pretty serious student of the Alexander technique as well.
Yes.
So, and if and your teacher's name, which I've marked here, Jenny Thirtle, is that how it's pronounced?
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Thirtle, who lives
Uh-huh.
in Melbourne. And so if you're listening to this and you live in the Melbourne area, um, I will put what I will do is put a link to your blog, which is all about your experiences with music, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
And if someone wants to locate Jenny, they can just send you an email.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll also put a link to a site that has general information about the Alexander technique and will enable you to locate a teacher anywhere in the world. So I think with that, Helene, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Robert. Thank